Okay. Professor Shah, please take over. Uh, can you hear me, Professor Shah? You're on mute.
Menka, just give him 2 minutes.
Okay. I already see a question in the Q&A window. Let me check. Please give us a moment as Professor Shah is trying to join. We are already seeing some questions. Elaborate on placement strategy from Abhi Warrior. And also, why is the certificate from another university and not from IPL? Is there a different certificate we get from IPL too? Great, Abhi, you can talk with Professor Shah. Let's just give him a moment. Yeah, let me take that one. So, Abhi Warrior, so the reason why an executive MBA, any kind of MBA, right? The certificate has to be from a university, a recognized university, and that is what gives it the value. So that is why we are in alliance with many universities. Yes, we do IPL certification for our certification programs. We will give you a better picture onto it once Professor Shah joins us. Professor Shah, can you hear us?
Yes, I can finally. Sorry about being a few minutes late.
Great. No worries. We are very happy to have you here, and many people are very eager to talk to you. We already have a couple of questions. So, welcome to this session, and please take over.
Excellent. I think, let me see if I can turn my video on, if that helps.
That would be great.
Is there somebody who needs to allow that to happen?
Uh, no, you can do that. You are a host. I'll make you a host right now. Could you please try now?
No, it says you cannot start the video because the host has stopped it.
Sonal, can you give the host access to Professor Shah?
Done.
Great, you should be able to do it now.
Okay.
Great.
Hopefully everyone is doing well with the situation, obviously, that we're in, and making the best out of that. Happy to share some thoughts and answer some questions for you. I don't have any slides, although I can bring up a few in the context of your questions and what you're more curious about. So I guess with that, maybe we can jump right into the questions. Um, if there are already some. Uh, I saw one question that kind of popped in the evening on the LinkedIn thread. Maybe I can kind of get started with that. But just a quick background for myself, having been in an engineering role and kind of an accidental product manager myself for the last several years. I've been in the U.S. Most recently the global vice president for products at McAfee, and over the years, I think this discipline has evolved quite a bit globally. Certainly, it is going through its fast growth of evolution here in India. And so happy to share some nuances and differences between the two as well. But I think what's more important is to understand that, a full stack product leader, and I'm using the word leader, not product manager, as I'll try to explain that difference as well. But a full stack product leader really has four kinds of skill categories, right? So, and in fact, a lot of hiring managers hire accordingly as well. I've had to hire many of them in my life, and we all use the same classification. So the first one is the inbound product management, right? And so the kind of skills that you generally expect from an inbound product manager is more about market research, figuring out what problems to solve, customer discovery, market discovery. The second aspect is the whole agile and development methodology of how you give instructions and road mapping to the engineering teams, to your construction teams. And there's a lot of processes, obviously with Scrum and Agile. But more important than that, the roadmap prioritization. The third element is your user experience design, which is all about the prototyping aspect, both low fidelity and high fidelity. How do you now visually represent your ideas? How do you prioritize? How do you validate visually? Right. So all of those put together is your inbound product manager. Your outbound product manager is kind of kicking into action when you have a product or service you've already built, and now the question is, how are we going to acquire customers? What does the messaging look like? How should we position the product? What's the competitive analysis look like? How do I do a marketing plan? How do I execute a launch plan? Messaging, branding, positioning, routes to market, go-to-market planning, all of that put together, especially digital marketing being a very, very important, especially if your products are digital in nature, or if your buyers are digital in nature. Your products may be physical, but if your buyer journey is digital, again, digital marketing becomes very, very important. All of that is your outbound product management. The third, very, very important aspect, which has become a lot more exciting in the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, is this whole notion of data science driven product decision making, right? Data science driven business leadership. And data science, not just for decision science to make better decisions, but also data science in terms of applying that as a feature of the product itself. And in many of the cases, the product itself, data itself is the product, right? Data driven features are getting monetized. Uber's dynamic pricing is a good example of that a couple of years ago, where the feature is completely driven on data science, right? So now as a product leader, you have to now have an accurate understanding of data science projects, how to interlock with the data science team, and hence how do you become kind of hands-on, at least at an applied level, if not at a programmatic level or a statistical level. And the last one, as you go through inbound product management, outbound product management, data science and analytics driven product management. And the last one is your finance, strategy, and business, right? How do you put together a financial model? How do you put together a roadmap that is from a business strategy, from a vision perspective, beyond just the first release, beyond just the first version. And so all four aspects together uh, build up what we call cylinders of skills that hiring managers and industry looks for. Leadership skills, which is almost like the glue. If there was a fifth layer of this cake, and a very important one is the leadership skills. How do you tell a story? How do you manage conflicts? How do you kind of resolve and rally teams around you? Leading by influence. People don't report to you, and yet you're cross-functionally leading groups of people within the organization requires a very strong set of deep leadership acumen. And it's not just common sense. There's a lot of interesting frameworks that I think you need to master. And so all that put together is really what we call a global product leader. Now you may start with one or two, but eventually your goal ought to be conquering all of those competencies across all five. And I think there's a very popular question that I saw getting popped up here in the Q&A as well. So I just thought I'll open that up, Meenka, with hopefully that answers others' questions as well. Yeah.
Definitely. Great. So yes, this is exactly the space from where they start having questions. And yes, we have received many number of questions already. So let's Abhi here, since he's asked the first question, I'm going for his question here. He's asked, why is the certificate from, so I was telling them about the executive MBA program that we have, and why is the certificate from another university and not from IPL? And is there a different certificate we get from IPL too? This is a common question from 2-3 people.
If you're looking at the executive MBA program, it is an accredited degree program. So while it is run and while it is engineered to create specific career outcomes from the industry perspective, while the faculty are all practitioners, the program runs in affiliation with a university, because in the context of India, and again, I'm not an expert, but I think from what I know, you cannot have a formal UGC approved government accredited degree program unless it is a university program happening at the university campus. And so that's the relationship, right? Even though the program is run through the IPL curriculum, it runs in conjunction with a university. So this way, the degree that you get is a formal master's degree, universally accepted. In fact, you can do PhD after this program in 140 countries. Unlike a certificate program or a PG, PGDG, all these types of programs that I hear, those are certificate programs. Those are not, your degree programs, right? So you cannot do a PhD, for example, after that. So that's the first reason why, the accredited degree programs have to be done with the university. So, in Pune, it is MIT University. In Bangalore, it's CMR and PES. And so on and so forth. Now, the Flex program, which is a kind of campus-free program, that particular program runs with University of Houston, with the Bauer College of Business, one of the top 10 rated schools, business schools in the world, because that program is a campus-free program, right? So it's a global program. It's not just a program that runs in India. And so that particular program is affiliated with University of Houston. So you also get, you get the IPL certificate, but you also get it from University of Houston. And there are multiple other programs where the IPL certification is what you get at the end. So it really depends on which program you are looking at. If you ask me a more specific question, I can kind of narrow down into that particular program for you.
Great. I think we have many other questions coming up, which will automatically answer this same question again. And
Sure.
Abhi, we will come back to the question that you have on the placement strategy. Now, Manish, I hope this answered your question as well. And Manish has another question. Is it right to transition to a product management role after spending 10 years in the service industry doing QA roles?
Absolutely. In fact, let me give you some interesting data points. 71%, according to the last research that was done globally, 71% of product managers who enter product management for the first time as a role come from either a development or some kind of a QA background, right? Now, this is fascinating because that's a fairly large percentage of number. I think part of it is also because a good quality engineer or a quality assurance person always puts the customer in the forefront, right? You evaluate this requirement, you're testing that requirement or functionality in the lens of the customer. And so naturally, because you have started putting yourself in the lens of that customer, it is very easy for you to adapt to a product management role. Like I said, because inbound product management is all about mapping the customer, looking through the lens of the customer, figuring out how to delight the customer, and so on and so forth, right? So it is very, very doable, and it has been done. I would say for hundreds of people who've gone through this. Now, your second question about services to product, that also has been done. In fact, if you look at the 2,000 plus alumni, I think, who have graduated from the institute, I'd say a good majority, of those early entrant folks, especially the section that has become, more of a transition story for them to move into that role, comes from services. Just because statistically there are a lot more services folks, project managers, QA, business analysts, and so on and so forth in India, right? So very, very doable, has been done. The mindset has to shift. It's not just the skill set. When you go from a service to a product culture, your ability to think scale, your ability to think, build once, serve many, as opposed to custom building for every customer, obviously has to change. But beyond that, it's very, very doable and has been done. So no big deal. Absolutely possible is the short answer.
Great. Thank you. Vikash here has a question. So Vikash has been working in the industry for last 20 years and he's from a core engineering background, and transition to a product management role. Now, most of the work he has done is with startups. He is asking, will a boot camp help him get in an established organization, or will the executive MBA help him?
Honestly, I'll have to understand a little bit more in terms of your background. What have you done? What levels of exposure do you have across the different competencies that I mentioned? In fact, let me put up this wheel for you guys to see as well. Part of the reason why I was a little late is I was switching laptops, and this is my Surface Pro, which I think was not set up for Zoom, but let me see if I can show a chart and then can I answer that question for you. Okay. And so these are the four things that I was referring to. Now, if you look at these 25 competencies, which is a structured way of looking at product management in general, right? Hopefully this will help you while I answer specific questions for folks. So coming back to your question, I think it's a combination of what all have you been exposed to, And more importantly, what is your ultimate goal moving forward? If your ultimate goal is to move into another startup opportunity where you start your own venture, I think both programs, would do well. If your goal is to kind of get into a more shift of a career and build a strong portfolio, an 18-month program is much more effective, not because the faculty is different. Pretty much the faculty is the same in both programs, but I think the time that you get, the amount of immersive coaching, the amount of time that you spend with your mentors and faculty and cohorts, allows you to create a much more richer set of portfolio. And and at the end of the day, your transition from whatever role, whatever industry, whatever function that you're in, moving into a different industry, a different domain, or a different role is going to be a function of how well have you created that portfolio. And portfolio is a demonstrable skill that kind of proves to the hiring managers of what you're capable of, right? So it's one thing to say and claim that I know design, that I know finance, that I understand these capabilities. It's another thing for you to be able to demonstrate that, to be able to showcase that, to be able to prove through a real live project, a live industry challenge that you have solved, because that allows you to make the case lot more strongly and hence predictably shifting and moving into the new role, right? And so the 18-month program gives you 3 such opportunities in 3 such semesters, where every semester has a product labs. And I don't know if you guys have researched this.
Please stay with us for a moment. As we wait for Professor Shah, let me try to see some of your. So somebody here, Sri Mukundan, has asked about, can you speak about the ROI of doing an executive MBA on product leadership in IPL, assuming that one spent 8.5 to 9 lakhs? Very, very valid question. So Professor Shah will come back and give you a very good view into this question, but let me try to take it as he joins us back. So when IPL, first of all, the executive MBA in product leadership, it is not just another management program, which is generic. So this is, as I told you while we started this session, we are built upon certain very strong pillars. Professor Shah, are you back?
I am back. Looks like I did not anticipate so many problems on this new machine. So apologies. Looks like it kicked me out.
Sorry. So just 1 second, Sri Mukundan, we will take that question again. So while you were trying to join back, I was just trying to tell Sri Mukundan about the ROI of doing an executive MBA with us, with IPL.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap up the last thought, right? So if you have product labs, your ability to work on that live project, multiple times is obviously multiplied 3 times, if you will, right? Compared to a boot camp program. So in some sense, it is a better option. But again, we'll have to learn more about your background. If there's a way You can send your resume or your current LinkedIn profile. I can quickly analyze and give you some more pointed feedback. Yeah.
Great, great, sure. So maybe we can get on to this question on the ROI, Professor Shah, since Shimkudan was,
Sure.
yeah, please,
Sure.
please go ahead.
I think at the end of the day, ROI is very important to calculate, especially for working professionals. But it's not just the money; it's the time that you're also going to invest. It's an opportunity cost as well, right? I think the ROI comes in one of three forms. What we call a transition. Your ability with confidence and predictability for you to be able to shift from a functional role to a product role, uh, potentially with much higher wealth generation options for you, right? The average salary for a 2 years experience product manager I've seen is anywhere from 36 to 38 lakhs. We've seen alumni who've gone as high as 84 lakhs, in their own, offers, right? And so first is how quickly, predictably, can you move into a different role, a transition. The second is what we call acceleration, a scenario where, if you were going to become a vice president or a senior vice president, let's say in your own life, in your own path, through your own effort, 5 years from now, 8 years from now, let's say, can you do that in half that time? Can you do that in 3 years instead? Right? This is a classic example of what we call acceleration. Can you accelerate your career to that end goal much faster? And obviously, the ROI is much better because that acceleration brings and moves it forward, especially the wealth generation capabilities. And the third one is entrepreneurship, right? If you have an idea, can you now confidently uh, launch that startup, potentially not make the mistakes that a rookie would make, and hopefully, if startups were going to be in the ratio of 8 startups failing out of 10, or if 8 out of 10 times if you're going to fail, can you now only have 2 out of 10 failure ratios? You may still fail. Just because you do this program doesn't mean it guarantees you the next Flipkart that you're going to build. However, you will be a lot more seasoned in making decisions, avoiding the rookie mistakes. And I think there's a value and a premium to that, especially for those who have 10 plus years of experience, and you don't have too much time to just kind of do trial and error, right? So to me, the ROI is very simple. If I use a calculator, or a mathematical form to discuss this, it is whatever you invest, you need to be able to get 3x back, of that investment in minimum 3 years, right? So if you're investing, 30 lakhs into something, or 10 lakhs into something, you better get 3 times more in 3 years. And to me, that's the true sign of any executive education, not just here at the institute, but I think wherever you go, whichever option you're evaluating. I also teach at a couple different places around the world, and I think most of these programs, especially IIMs, ISB, Amsterdam University, a couple other places where I have done guest lectures, I think the model remains the same, which is 3 times the investments in 3 years. And if you don't have a shot at that, not a good ROI for you. So
Great.
I hope that gives a more practical way of evaluating as well, Sri Mumtan.
That's absolutely clear. So one more question from Sri Mukundan. What is the path going from being a data scientist to a product manager? In terms of remuneration, will it make sense to move from data scientist to product manager?
I think it makes sense, but not because of just the money part, right? I think data science guys do pretty well. In fact, if you're very good, you can be as good and as well paid, especially a data science manager, if not a data scientist, as well paid as a product manager. I think the real answer is, do you enjoy building something end to end, running something end to end? uh, managing the business as opposed to managing the technology, right? And if the answer is yes to any one of them, then it makes perfect sense to get into product management, because data science is actually leveraged now heavily in the product leadership roles. And again, I just also want to clarify one thing, which is a myth that exists with a lot of working professionals, which is, hey, I don't want to become a product manager. Why is this product management skill important to you? And let me tell you, half of you may never be interested in building a career in title as a product manager. Yet, it is absolutely imperative that you learn product management skills, because at the end of the day, what will make you a VP of engineering or a VP of data science a group, or a VP of support for that matter, is that same customer context, business context, and innovation context, right? The VP of engineering or the SVP of engineering is not the smartest coder in the room, but is one who understands the end-to-end aspects of the customer context, business context, and innovation context, right? And to me, that's product management, right? As a skill set, not as a role, not as a title, but as a skill set. So keep in mind, this is not just a product management program. This is a product leadership program. And so this allows you to get into that CXO roles faster. And if that happens to be product management, even better, but it doesn't have to be.
Great. So I see some questions about the university and the MBA degree, etc. So for the lack of time, let's move on to some more, product management related questions. But for the other questions, please see on the screen the QR code. I would suggest please scan it and let's do a 30 minutes one-on-one where you can get all your questions answered. Now moving on to Digvijay Thakur. How can product manager contribute into overall sustainability of organization than just targeting multifold financial growth? It's a big question. We have been witness a lot of multi-million startups struggling to sustain during COVID pandemic. How product management accommodate environmental risk mitigation for sustainability? So that is 3 questions from one person.
Yeah, it looks like there's multiple questions, but let me answer what I understand one by one, and then if that's not right, then happy to clarify, and you guys can ask the follow-up question as well. Product like I said, product management as a word should not be narrowly construed to a title, to a job title, or to a role that gets printed on the business card. Product management is an art and science of making good decisions across the life cycle of a business, right? A very simplistic way of understanding product management is that. Now, as you are looked upon as a leader to make better decisions across the life cycle, right? From the idea all the way to the validation, all the way to figuring out the right segment to focus on from a customer perspective, all the way to pricing, packaging, messaging, branding, all the way to sustainably now, balancing the growth along with the unit economics and the financial parameters across that life cycle. You are now not only have to be skilled, but you also have to focus and interlock with a cross-functional set of people. And that's why product leaders are also called cross-functional specialists. I'm using the word specialist because you have to be very good. This is not jack of all trades and master of none. You have to be very good at the crux of solving that business problem and financially, hopefully making money for your organization. But more importantly, you need to have cross-functional skills, to be able to interlock. And so it is a multifunctional, context that you need to have. And this is not just about one industry. This is not just about manufacturing or just IT or just automotive. Product leaders traverse across disciplines, across domains, and it's equally applicable. A bottle of water is also a product. A Bisleri can is also a product. An Uber software app is also a product. A Schneider Electric's electrical switchboard is also a product, and so on and so forth, right? So don't narrow this down again to the context of your zone or your domain only. So hence it is very crucial role. Now the second important thing is COVID and the impact of COVID. While businesses are going to struggle, there is no question about it. For the foreseeable future, we are going to have a slightly different economy than what was there in March just a few months ago. There's no question about it, worldwide, right? Across the industry. Some industries, even more devastating effects, especially retail and real estate, for example, or entertainment, right? Now, having said that, what is fascinating is that the rise in the number of product openings in the same COVID period has been up by 25%. Fascinating. Just look at all your job boards and you can verify this in your own zone. Most likely in every industry you will find this. And the reason this is because every company now has to renovate itself, have to figure out new models, new ideas, new ways of monetizing, new offerings, new customer segments. So there's a lot of new. And that burden falls back on the shoulders of a good product manager. And so a lot of product managers are being hired now and is going to continue to be hired to help the business recover from in a very innovative way, in a very creative way, in a very cost-effective way, right? So I think this is not necessarily, COVID is not necessarily a dampener on the profession. The need for product managers, the hiring is only going to go higher, even in these circumstances, right? For the reasons that I just mentioned to you. The environmental risk, I'm not sure if I'm qualified to answer that question. I don't know enough about what sustainability you're referring to, but I think if I can learn a little bit more, perhaps offline, I can give a more contextual answer, Digvijay.
Great, thank you. Rakesh would like to know about the ICPM program. I thought it would be great if you could give him a few pointers.
So, again, a lot of information is on the website. So I encourage you to spend some time, look at it. If there's a specific question that you have around that program, I'm happy to take it now or later in a separate one-on-one that you can set up. But I think, broadly, since you asked the question, I don't want to not answer it either. So the 5-month program is a subset of the 18-month executive MBA in product leadership. And so if you look at inbound and outbound product management, that's the focus of the international certificate program in product management, product marketing. But if you also go beyond inbound, outbound into finance, strategy, leadership, into data science, analytics, and applied, all of that is a superset in the 18 months, right? So a rather simplistic answer is if the 18-month program is an 18-inch Subway sandwich, then the 5-month program is a 5-month or a 5-inch Subway, 6-inch Subway sandwich, right? It's the same sandwich with the same fresh ingredients, but it's smaller in scope, smaller in size, right? And so some people like that. Some people like the fact that you can kind of finish something sooner, and they don't care really so much for the longer immersive way of learning. And so that might be just fine for you as well. So just take a look at the options and kind of figure out which one fits best for you.
Great, thank you. So Padma Priya here has a question. I'm a UX designer and I have studied design and been in the industry for 6 years. What would be my first step to get into the role of a product manager?
When you say first step, I don't know if there's a first step. There's a couple steps that you'll have to take to get to that destination. Like I said, inbound product management is probably your first entry point. But again, it's not just a step. Inbound product management itself has agile, has design, which obviously you're a designer, so you probably have a much stronger handle, market research, figuring out the value proposition design, not just the interface design and the user experience design, but more of the value, the business design. I would say inbound product management ought to be your first entry point, but very quickly outbound product management is also going to be important because it goes kind of hand in hand. As a designer, you will have an edge because a lot of product managers do not learn or do not have strong design experience. So they cannot prototype things very easily. A lot of product managers, even today, practicing product managers rely heavily on maybe PowerPoint if at best, but they really don't have hands-on access to Azure or InVision or Balsamic or many tools that a designer uses to prototype. And so I think in some sense you will have an edge if you groom yourself to the product management skills. You will have an edge as a product manager as you enter that profession, and it's a very a fulfilling role to be able to understand both the financial aspects of the product and the more artistic side of the product, which is what design is all about, right? So very doable. Strongly encourage you to look at this. It'll be a strong edge for you.
Great. So please ask your questions in the Q&A window. Now we have a question from Subhranshu. He has a concern. Throughout this discussion, it is all centered about IT services, engineering, etc. How is this course designed for QAs in manufacturing, specifically pharmaceuticals? And here the product is really need to be invented.
Yeah, no. So I don't know if you were joining this call earlier when I was making the comment for the earlier question. I am not referring to IT at all. This whole science, art and science of product management is industry agnostic. So this is not just for IT. Now it may appear, perhaps because as an individual, I may come from IT, so I may have given you that impression. That's not the intent. A lot of alumni are from IT, especially in India, because again, the vast majority of the population, especially in cities like Bangalore, are very heavily statistically more ingrained in IT, and so you may see a lot more people by virtue of statistics joining the program coming from IT. But no, the program is not designed for IT versus non-IT. There is no such distinction, right? And so it's equally relevant. I mean, we have a dietitian in the program right now. We have an Air Force pilot in the program. We have a medical doctor in the program. And so we in fact encourage diversity. We have lots of folks from manufacturing. We have people from Ford. We have people from Schneider. We have people from GE Aviation. I'm trying to think some companies where the alumni that I can remember, they come, Caterpillar, right? I mean, John Deere tractors. People come from all kinds, pharmaceutical biocons of the world, Map My Genomes, right? And there's a lot of these medical, and hospitality type of companies who are also part of the cohort. So this is not for IT at all. I don't think you should worry or get that impression that somehow it is different. It is not different. Yes, each domain has its own nuances, but this program is not about domain. In fact, it's not going to teach domain to you. So let me also kind of be the bearer of bad news, or not bad news, but disappointing news, if at all you were expecting. This program does not go into any kind of domain learning. We believe that domains cannot be taught in a classroom. Domains have to be experienced. For you to understand retail, you have to spend time in retail industry. For you to be in manufacturing, you have to spend some time. This is not a classroom exercise. It's very hard, almost improbable in my personal opinion, to do that. So the program is not catered to them or specific to them. If you're from manufacturing and if you're from QA, this is equally relevant to you. And there are lots of people on LinkedIn. You should search Institute of Product Leadership on LinkedIn and find out a lot of alumni from your industry and connect with them to get a much better view as well, right? So I strongly encourage you do that. In fact, let me see if I have my screen shared. I strongly encourage all of you to go to LinkedIn, and especially when you go to LinkedIn, the alumni section is something that I strongly recommend you find. Who knows, you may even be connected to people in your own network. So if you go on search, type Institute of Product Leadership, and this is the view that you will be seeing. And on the left side, you'll see alumni. So just click on alumni. And now there you go. All those people who have tagged themselves, there are about 1,200 people, looks like, who have tagged themselves total out of the 2,500 who graduated, right? So about half of them have tagged, because this page only got created about a year and a half ago. And you can kind of see where they are, where they work, what city they're in, how many years of experience do they have, what industry they work for, and so on and so forth, right? And you can kind of go and filter and see. So for example, I want to see all the people working at VMware. I will just click on VMware, and there you go. It'll kind of show me globally the entire alumni pool from who are currently in VMware, right? So this is a good way, for you to also look at the network, connect with them, and get more insights. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
So I guess Pradeep Agarwal, you would have gotten your answer also, the same QA to product owner, product manager question. Now, Sri Mukundan has a doubt here. There are, and given the COVID situation, I guess, there are few JDs appearing for remote product manager job roles. What are the pros and cons?
I mean, at this point, remote is not necessarily an anomaly. I think remote is the new normal. It could be remote across the city, which obviously has been the case in the last few months for many of you, working from home. It could be remote across the continents, especially for multinationals. And that has been the case before COVID for many years now. I've had a large team in India when I was in the United States, and vice versa. So I think remote is not necessarily an anomaly or something specifically that you should be worried or give it special consideration. It's just normal. It's just absolutely normal. And I think as long as you have strong understanding of the metrics on how you are going to be measuring the business, measuring the growth, measuring the engineering outcomes, measuring the sales and marketing outcomes, it doesn't matter where you are. It certainly behooves you to have the skills to have this conversation, with the right, vocabulary. So if you're going to have a conversation with sales, you need to understand what sales buying process looks like. What are the maps of a sales funnel? How does a product manager help at every stage of that funnel, right from suspect to prospect to active, eval to close? So all of these skills are absolutely necessary for you. It puts more pressure on you to be more organized because you're remote. You can't just walk up and go to the water cooler anymore. It does put a little bit more pressure on your ability to articulate with the right words and the right vocabulary. So other than those few things, it's no different. So if you get an opportunity that has good scope, good role, a good growth path, take it. If it's remote, I don't think it matters.
Great. So we have received some 3-4 questions on the placement. So how much, so there is a question from Sri Mukundan, how much percentage of candidates get placed in product manager jobs after 1.5 years of degree? What kind of placement support do you get for people who don't land in a product manager job? And there is another one from Abhi Warrior. I heard from few alumni that hiring managers will give preference to experienced product managers than transition product managers. What is your take on it?
Okay, so let me answer one by one, and if I miss something, certainly let me know. Uh, First of all, the word placement is the wrong word to use in executive education. Placements is a word that we use in full-time programs, um, where the idea is that those who are in the class, in the cohort, they don't have a job, they've left their jobs, and so you're kind of literally placing them somewhere, so that they are actively employed, hopefully in a way that is much better, much more advanced than what they were perhaps 2 years ago when they left that job, or when they joined the program. So placement is a word that we use there. For executives, it's generally called career management cell. And different institutes and different universities will use different names, but certainly placement is not one of them. Right? Now, the career management cell in the context of the institute, here in the Institute of Product Leadership, is more around enabling you with 3 C's, right? A very easy way to understand this, and I think this is true for almost all executive education programs around the world. But particularly in the Institute of Product Leadership, they strongly follow the 3C model. The first one is the content. Do you have exposure, and are you equipped and trained to have the best curated content for the expertise that is at question? If it's a data science program or a product management program or a product design program, are you the absolute best? Are you exposed, and can you have the vocabulary to speak, to communicate, to understand, to make better decisions using frameworks in each of these respective areas, right? So content is very, very important, and cannot be underemphasized. This is not a general management program where you learn a little bit of everything. You go deep and you become absolutely a master in those areas. The second C is the context, which is where the application comes in, the product labs comes in, the live industry projects come in, the assignments and assessments come in. So all of that is designed from a learning experience for you to be able to build an awesome portfolio. The portfolio that we talked about earlier, which is what you would demonstrate to the hiring manager or to your internal manager for a promotion, to say, hey, look, this is my signal. Don't take a look at my don't take a look at my resume, which may say all the right things and all the right keywords. Take a look at my portfolio, because that's the proof of what I'm capable of doing. And I think that's the killer converter. That's what's going to convert and crack that interview. The third is the connection. The third C is the connections, right? And again, the Institute of Product Leadership is deep rooted in the product industry. A good sign of this is just go to productleadershipfestival.com, right? In fact, a sample of who's who around the world are associated as practitioners, as hiring managers, as faculty, and that's a good glimpse for you just to see who comes to speak. And there's a lot of industry connect. A lot of that Saturdays and evenings are also going to be on Industry Connect. So a lot of hiring managers formally come, they give challenge. It's called a talent hackathon. So they'll give a problem statement. They'll give you 4 days. You put together your product plan, your business plan, your pitch, and you present how you would solve that problem in front of that hiring manager. And that's how hiring has happened. Hundreds of people have come and hired from that type of model, of talentathons, right? So content, context, connections. These are the 3 strong pillars of how the career management cell operates, and allows you and enables you to crack into that new role, right? Because on your own, of course, you can do it, but the connections also help. That influence is also important. Now, that doesn't mean that you should look at this as a placement, though, right? Because placement means what? Getting a job in Axis Bank is also placement. I'm sure most of you wouldn't care Not that Axis Bank is a bad place, but I'm just saying that not that most of you would care for just any job, right? You want the job. You probably want, much more selective in what you want. So in that context, short answer is that's how career management cell operates. And that's how you can leverage all of those resources throughout the program and also beyond the program lifelong. This is very important. This is not just a transaction that you get some kind of support at the end of the program when you graduate. The support is continuous and all the time. We have alumni who graduated 3 years ago, and at that time they were not so keen to make a shift or to look for an opportunity. Now they are. They come back. They join the career club and they get access to all of the alerts, all of these industry connects, all of these hiring manager dates, all of these talent hackathons, and find their dream job, find their dream opportunity. So for us, relationship is lifelong, and your access to career management cell is also lifelong. Right. So hopefully that answers the question on the career management cell and career club.
Yes.
Now there was another question, and I knew I was going to forget. So what was the second part of the question, Menka?
Yeah, 1 second. How much so there is this one, how much percentage of candidates get placed in the product manager job after 18 years of this
No.
is the common.
I don't know what percentage, but I would say if I were to venture to guess, 80% of people who want to move in the first year of their graduation itself. Right? Not everybody is wanting to move, by the way. You have to also understand these are senior programs designed for senior professionals, and a lot of them may want to start their own venture. A lot of them actually want to move up. They want to stay within the same company, but they want to accelerate into a different zone within the same company, right? And so for them, obviously, all the career management cell is also helpful, but that may not be shifting, the role. So those who do want to shift, the 80% of them happens in the first year itself.
Great. So, anonymous attendee, I think your question is already answered regarding QA, transition from a QA role. And we are skipping through some questions which has been answered here and there. Now, Vikas, please see the QR code on your, I have shared my screen, and please get a one-on-one counseling session that would help you. And now, there is this question. I would like to know, this is from Sri Vishnu Shankar. I would like to know how much of thought and actionable leadership shall one expect to develop over a period of 18 months if he brings his idea to the product lab. Of course, it is subjective, yet would like to hear insights. We did touch upon this, but
Yeah. No, I think we talked a little bit about it, but let me emphasize this part that you mentioned in your question, I think, which is a very good point, and I may have overlooked mentioning that. In that product labs, which happens every semester, so each semester is 6 months, which means you have round 1, round 2, and round 3. All 3 semesters have product labs component, by the way, in parallel to your courses and your weekends, the Saturday, Sunday weekend classes. So in some sense, you have 3 rounds, which means you can potentially productize 3 different ideas, or take one idea and bring that same idea back to 2 and refine it further. Bring it back in semester 3 and refine further. So you can do this. People have done that. So very cool. In the first 6 months itself.
Your voice is breaking a little bit. We lost you for a bit. You're on mute.
You guys can hear me okay now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, super. So what I was saying is that each product lab section, which is in each semester, you have the opportunity to productize the idea. And I strongly encourage you bring your own idea, because this will allow you to not only learn, but also get some work done for your entrepreneurial venture or your thought. Again, the intent is not to become an entrepreneur as an outcome of this. If you want to, even better. But I think a vast majority of 70% or so are not really necessarily looking to become an entrepreneur. We still encourage them to bring their own idea, because the process of productization is more important than the idea itself, right? And so the practice of applying that process to any idea and turn that into a product is essentially the kind of learning that we would want every participant to go through.
Great. Thank you. So there is a question from Ankit. I'm not sure if this can be answered, and because we may need more information from him. Just a certification, is it sufficient for a 7 years experienced techno-functional engineer to get a product leader role?
I think, first of all, the two parameters that you have asked in the question, 7 years of experience and certification, and hence your question is that enough to get into a product leader's role? Now let me be direct and blunt with you. I think both those parameters, first of all, are irrelevant. And let me explain. 7 years, 10 years, 12 years, after 4, so there's maybe a zone of 0 to 4. There's a different kind of treatment in the industry. Different kind of jobs exist for you. 4 to 10, slightly different zone. 10 plus. So it really doesn't matter. And this question comes up a lot, right? I have 15 years of experience. How is it better than somebody who has only 10 years of experience? And I'm saying, no, it's not better, right? 15 years of experience is fine. But what you want to do now is an even playing field for both you and the other guy who only has 10 years of experience, right? So there is no necessarily a distinct advantage. So years of experience, after a while, is rather an irrelevant data point to worry about. Now, if you have more experience, great, leverage that. But if you don't, I don't think you're going to miss out on something big, right? So that's one. Second is this word certification. To me, I think too much importance is given to this, certification in India, and especially in the Indian context, right? And I don't want to generalize for everybody in India, but I've heard this a lot, in Southeast Asia when I meet and when I mentor participants. So I would say de-emphasize certifications, de-emphasize, these 4-letter words, PMP, CSPO, ITIL, all these other things that I'm sure, black belt, yellow belt, whatever else that you guys are working on. Do it if you have extra time, money, and energy, but not necessary. It is not necessary to have certification. Your skills are going to be 90% more valuable than the certification. Now, once you have the skills, if you also want the certification because you have the extra time, money, and energy, go for it. It's an icing on the cake. It's an extra brownie point, but it is not the main thing. So don't expect just because you get certified that all of a sudden there is a red carpet and people will kind of start looking. Most hiring managers do not care. And let me repeat, most hiring managers do not care about certification, especially in the product space, product management space, right? Now I understand in project management space, it's a big deal. And so maybe it's important to have it, but not so much here would be my candid advice, Ankit. So I'm not saying don't do certifications. I'm not saying don't do good degree programs from wherever you want to, but don't pay attention to the degree, including the one coming from IPL. Pay more attention to the skills, because that's where it's going to be a breaking ground for you. And that's where it's going to be predictable for you, in terms of cracking into a new world. Right. So hopefully that was a little bit more direct and blunt answer at the benefit of Ankit asking the question for the rest of you as well, right?
Great. So this should have answered your question on the age and experience level, Sri Mukundan. Now, Namrata has a question here. Can you do ICPM Flex and then decide to do EMBA? That is, can the credentials of ICPM Flex be carried to the EMBA?
I don't think so. But again, I'm not an expert, so I think you may want to check with your relationship manager or somebody who may answer that. But I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because one is a university program affiliated, run under a very physical, face-to-face, campus-based learning experience. And the second one, which is the Flex program, is a campus-free version. So it's really apples and oranges in some sense from a learning format. And so I don't think you can carry forward that. Now you can do an EMBA later if you just want to do Flex right now. And a lot of people, have taken that path. But if your ultimate goal is to do the executive MBA, my recommendation is just take the straight path and just start the right journey towards the goal. Even though it seems a little long, and if it seems a little bit more effort to do that, it is absolutely worth it. It is absolutely worth it. So if ultimately your interest and goal is to get a executive MBA in product leadership, I don't think don't take intermediate steps. Get started on that path. It will actually get done faster than you think. Once you're in the program, and a lot of people, and you should talk to some alumni who are in it, so they can tell you about the apprehensions they had when they joined from a time, effort, and once they're in it, they're just super enjoying. And then when it finished, they're saying, "Hey, look, how can we meet more? Because this was not enough, right? And so we want more because your appetite increases, your engagement increases, you love. It's very practical, so you enjoy doing it, and so it's a very different feeling." So Namrata, I would say if EMBA is on your mind, if that's the right path, if you can afford the time and energy, just get started on that one.
Great. So I think we are kind of overshooting the time, and I do see just one or two questions.
Sure.
So during these situations wherein personal classes, that is face-to-face classes, may not be possible in the near future, won't ICPM be the better track or faster track?
It's not necessarily a faster track or a better track. It's just a different track, right? ICPM Flex is good for people who do not live in the city near a campus, right? So if you are in Nepal, it's very practically difficult to come to Bangalore twice a month. And so you might as well just do the ICPM Flex instead of trying to go through the struggle. If you're in Bangalore, well, then you have choices. Your best option is to go do a face-to-face experiential learning. But if that's not feasible time and resources wise, then ICPM Flex is the absolutely next best choice. Flex is designed for people who A, want to do it faster, B, don't want to necessarily go to the campus, and C, don't want to be locked into a schedule. You want to learn at your pace, at your convenience, at your speed. So people can finish the 5-month program in 3 months as well, right? Because that's how the Flex model works. Now, ICPM Campus Based, which is the 5-month campus program, is the same version as ICPM Flex, except there's a schedule. Every month, there is a skill hackathon. You have an immersion at the beginning, you have an immersion in the middle, you have an immersion at the end. Everybody starts together, everybody ends together, right? There's a cohort feeling. And then obviously executive MBA is all cohort and it's all campus driven. There's no online or e-learning type of thing. So these are really 3 different tracks. And one is not necessarily, better or faster. It is about the fitment to what you need. And again, if I know a little bit more, Vikas, on what your reservations or conditions or constraints are, then somebody can help you. I'm happy to help you if you send me a note or set up a time, to kind of further pinpoint it for you.
Great. So, Vikas and Namrata, please go ahead and book a one-on-one session. That would be better to cover all your questions. And same for Abhi Warrior. We do see a lot of questions from you. We are trying to answer as much as possible, keeping in mind other questions also. So please go ahead and book a one-on-one to get all your questions answered. And yes, this session is recorded and it will be shared with all of you. I just want to take one last question from Raji. Raji is asking, does ICPM Flex program have hands-on training projects to work on?
Absolutely. All programs at the Institute are always going to be assessments, assignment driven, but more importantly, live industry projects. Because we believe that learning by doing is the only realistic way, predictable way, assured way of building skills. So short answer is yes. ICPM Flex will also have access to the same high quality projects, same high quality assessments and assignments that an ICPM campus would have or an EMBA would have, right? So no dilution, no shortcut. So hopefully that answers your question, Raji.
Great. So with that, Professor Shah, I think it's time for us to close for the day. So I hope all of you guys got, the responses for your queries. But, with so many questions, it's difficult to cover everything. And if we have left out some, please visit our webpage. You will find most of the answers there, and the alumni page where you can see some of the success stories and how our alumni transition from one role to the other. You might get most of your answers answered there. And this session will be recorded and shared with you, as I mentioned. And please keep watching our events space. We will be coming up with more Ask Me Anything sessions. And as there is a design festival, before we close, there is a design festival which is coming up from the 9th of June. And I have seen some of the design related questions. So please go ahead and get your passes right away. And I think it's time to close for the day. And thank you all for joining. Thank you, Professor Shah, for your time. We hope to host
Absolutely
you again
pleasure.
soon.
Yeah, wish you all the very best. Yeah, wish you all the very best, and hopefully.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There are more questions coming in, and we will definitely take it up in another session. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night.